Welcome back to Gangs All Here, our New York Jets podcast from the New York Post. Happy Victory Monday, everybody. Those highlights you heard courtesy of CBS, the great Kevin Harlan on the call. Can you believe it? The New York Jets defeat the Houston Texans, the playoff contending Houston Texans, 30-6, a 0-0 game at the half, and insert the Ron Burgundy gif here. Boy, that escalated quickly. 2 touchdowns in the third quarter, a touchdown in the fourth quarter, 3 field goals in the fourth quarter, and the Jets win 30-6. They end their 5-game losing streak. They improve to 5-8 on the season. And I haven't mentioned it, but the story of the game, he's making us eat crow. Zach Wilson, with arguably the best game of his life, solid called the best game of his career, 301 yards for Zach Wilson. A lot of those coming in the second half. Something happened at halftime. Zach throwing for 92 in the first half in a 0-0 game. Looked like more of the same from the Jets. A couple of good drives here and there, but no points. And then unleashed in the second half. 18 for 21, 209 yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Can you believe it? 1 to Old Man Cobb. Corn on the cob. Randall Cobb with a touchdown. Breece Hall, shocker. He has a receiving touchdown. Garrett Wilson explodes for 9 catches and 108 yards. Breece Hall explodes in the receiving game. He couldn't do much on the ground. He said, F it, just like Zach did. 8 for 86 and a touchdown as a receiver. That's 126 total yards for Breece the Beast. And by God, did the Jets defense stifle the Texans. CJ Stroud just 10 of 23 for 91 yards. He had to leave the game in the fourth with an injury. He got hurt as Quentin Williams hit him. Not intentional, obviously, just a rough hit for Stroud. He left. Davis Mills came in, and same thing. No success. 1 for 5, 4 yards. It was an ugly game at MetLife Stadium. The conditions sucked. God bless you if you showed up to that game. And I got to say, usually you leave feeling like you should have never went. Man, if you sat through it, you got rewarded with a great game and a great win for the New York Jets. Listen, their playoff hopes are pretty much over. They're slim. They're still somewhat alive. So we're not even going to talk playoff future, none of that. We're just going to talk about winning football, and the Jets did that today. Their defense said, we're going to keep doing what we do, but do it even better. And the offense in the second half said, you know what? Zach said, I'm not going to be here, so let me just ball. And he played unafraid. Now, he had the 1 fumble, but listen, even the 1 fumble was on an 11-yard first down run. He runs to the first, loses the ball. It's a tough break. You know, he's not going to be perfect, but outside of that fumble, Zach was almost perfect today. 27 for 36 for 301 and 2 touchdowns. Now, the Gibson touchdown was a little, I thought they were going to give him credit for a pass. They called it a run. He could have got credit for a 3rd touchdown pass, which would have been insane. But, man, I got to hand it to Zach Wilson because, everyone, the story came out reluctant to start, and you can't really blame him, but you got to take the ball. You're an NFL quarterback. You're paid for your $35 million deal. And he came out and balled today. Now, all credit to Zach. Incredible game. The Zach truthers I know are out and about in full force, and they're coming for you. But remember, it is 1 game. So there are a lot of people who are saying Zach's back. It is 1 game. And people, you got to also put that in perspective here, that Zach was incredible. There's no taking that away from him. So happy for him. So happy for the team. It's so good to be talking about a victory. But this is 1 game, and the Jets still are going to get rid of him when the season is over. And listen, I hope he plays great the rest of the year. And the good thing is, if he does, this will at least get you a draft pick. You trade Zach. You have a chance to trade Zach if he plays like this. And you could get, a 6th-round pick. Maybe you're lucky and get a 5th-round pick for Zach Wilson. So that's the good news here. And the good news is that the Jets won a game, and they're not entirely out of it. They go to Miami next week to face the Dolphins. I still, Aaron Rodgers still isn't coming back, but maybe they can string a few wins. You got the Dolphins, and then you get the winnable games. Commanders, the Browns, led by Joe Flacco, picked up a great win. and then the Patriots to close out the season. You got 3 winnable games there. Maybe you come out of this winning 8 games, you go 8-9. And I think, the Jets are at a point you want to win games. And you saw how it felt for them to win the game. You saw Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall after the game talking about, he's the best player on the team. No, I am. No, he is. No, he is. And there was smiles around. And it's been so long. It's been since October 29th. And that game didn't even feel like a win when the Jets beat the Giants. The Giants handed that to the Jets. The last real Jets win, it really feels like was October 15th. It feels like almost 2 months ago when they beat the Eagles. Remember, they won 3 in a row. And the game before that win streak was the Chiefs game where everyone said that was Zach's best game. Well, this is because they won. That game, he was 28 for 39, 245 and 2 touchdowns. This one, 301 and 2 touchdowns, 27 for 36. So this one beats that one, and it ends in a victory. And the Jets, you got to be happy if you're a Jet fan on Sunday because you went into that game thinking it's going to be ugly. No chance Jets are going to win. Kaz and I both predicted the Texans, and you leave saying, wow, I did not see that coming. And it is a positive sign. Great job of the offensive line today, giving Zach time to throw the ball, and they just let him sling it. And in the second half, he really was slinging it. And the play calling was good. You can't blame Hackett up in the booth, covered, no rain on him. It was ugly out there and a lot of empty seats. And we'll talk about Kaz, the crowd, the atmosphere, all that in just a second here. But man, I really forgot what winning was like. And this defense, my goodness, absolutely incredible performance by the Jets defense. I mean, you cannot overlook just how good this defense was. They talked early on and they got a lot of crap for 85 Bears. This was like an 85 Bears kind of performance from the Jets defense. And CJ Stroud looked, not human most of the season. He looked like a superhero. And the Jets made him look pretty below mediocre. They came after him. They forced him into some bad throws. Obviously, the weather played a little bit of a part of that. But Quinnen had a sack today. Solomon Thomas had a sack. Bryce Huff had a sack. Will McDonald had a sack. 4 sacks for the Jets. And what a sight it was on a happy victory Monday. Let's bring in Kaz to talk about it. All right, you heard enough from me. Let's bring in Brian Costello, who was there at the stadium. And Kaz, can you believe what you just saw? It's like the shot heard around the world. The Zach heard around the world. Just initial thoughts. What'd you think? What happened?
Football, Jake, they beat the Eagles. It's like there's crazy things happen. So, I think you knew Zach had this in him. He can play games like this. It's just can't do this consistently. So I think that's now the question is, can he do it again? And what can he do in these final 4 games? But he played really well, and I thought, he trusted himself and threw the ball, which is something we haven't seen in a while. It seems like he's been timid, but he was firing away. I thought the 3rd down throw to Garrett on the first drive of the 3rd quarter was everything you needed to see, because that's taking a chance, throwing back across the field. He trusted himself. First, he felt the rush coming off the edge. He escapes. And then he trusts himself to make that throw across the field, which is a tough throw to throw. Coaches are going to tell you not to make. He did it, and it could result in a disaster. If he makes that throw 10 times, there's going to be some interceptions in those 10 times. So trust himself. And, I don't know if he was motivated after the week or pissed off or whatever it was. That's the best game I've seen him play. And, it's kind of little too late, I think, for him with the Jets. But, the questions, I do think the questions about why they kept him and why they stick by him as the number 2, he answered those today. And I think they knew he could have that game in him. It just hasn't come often enough in his career. And, I think when Zach is playing like that, he's clearly better than most backup quarterbacks. And he's better than that list of guys that we've been going over a bunch of times. Mm-hmm. But the problem is you just don't see that guy very often.
Yeah, a couple different layers. One, we had talked about the Chiefs game being his best game. Well, they lost that game. This one they won. So this one automatically tops that
Yeah. Oh, he played
statistically
better.
and in
Yeah,
terms
he
of
was
a
better.
victory.
Hmm.
The other thing is what happened at halftime? Like, did you ask anyone in the locker like
Yeah.
something switched? They went from 92 to 201 yards. He looked like a different player. What was it that's flipped? Did they just let him sling it more?
No,
And
I thought he had some success in the first half. Like the first drive was really good, and then they got the
yeah.
sack, right? They had like a few drives. I'd have to look at it, Jay, closer, but like there was a few drives in the first half where it was like, okay, they had something going, and then inevitably it would stall out. So I thought they were beating the Texans in the first half. They just weren't scoring points. I do think Hackett called some more passes on first downs in the second half. He was like that was a little more aggressive, but to me, it was just them, keeping these drives alive and converting. That was a big third down to Garrett, right? Then on the next possession, he converts the big third down to Conklin down the seam. He converts a third down to Garrett coming across the field. They were just like, that's third down is a down that's been terrible for them all year. And in the second half, they were just converting third downs. It's not a complicated game, Jake, when you do stuff like that. If you convert third downs, suddenly the offense can get in the red zone and you can make things happen.
And they said Zach this week had this effort mindset. Did you see him play? Because it looked like to me like he just looked a lot more comfortable out there. Did you see the effort in him on the field? Did you see that?
No, I didn't see that. I thought he just made some good decisions. I thought I thought he played a little of moving around. Uh and then I thought Brees and Garrett played really well. That's the other piece of this is I'm not sure what yards after catch were, but Brees seemed to have a lot of yards after catch, and that was effective. I thought Conklin played well, so I think that helped him for sure.
Yeah, they got the ball to Brees and Garrett. I think it was something like 34 of the 66 plays were either targeted to them or went to them. And that's what we have said on this show. It's like get it to your best playmakers. Don't get it to Jason Brownlee and Xavier Gibson, although Gibson had a touchdown.
They've been
Get it
open.
to your two
Like
big boys.
if you go back to the Atlanta game, Jake, if you watch that film again, like Garrett's open all day long. Boyle didn't throw it to him. So there's part of it is play calling, and part of it is the quarterback throwing the ball to him. And I thought Zach took some chances. Like there weren't some of the throws to Garrett, some of the throws to Conklin were not open. Like they weren't open, and he just threw it to them and let them make a play, which takes some guts to do. And if you're worried about turnovers, you don't do that. So I thought that part of it was good by Zach. And then I just thought Brees was a monster with yards after catch.
Yeah, 88 yards. The Jets ran 66 plays. 34 were targeted / touched by Garrett and Brees, and over 50% of the plays. And that's why that's with Brees only getting 10 of the 26 rushing attempts. So, they didn't need to run much. It was a beautiful sight to behold. Now, the other angle of this is, guys, what I worried about, I said, if Zach plays great here, the last couple of games, don't get fooled into bringing him back. We're giving him all the credit in the world. He was fantastic. I still don't think they will. But what can it do? Can this help them, get a 5th round pick? Can it be a 6th round pick instead of just cutting him if he balls out? Or do you see Joe Douglas in the back of his mind if he plays like this, 4 more games, him saying, you know what? Let's give him a try as a 2nd or a 3rd stringer, and we'll bring in a better veteran on top instead of Tim Boyle, someone better than Tim.
Yeah, I think he's gone, Jake. I think they know that, but yeah, I suppose there's a small chance if he played, but I don't think he's gonna play like this. I think this was a spasm of positivity that you're gonna get, and I think we'll be back to the regularly scheduled program next week against the Dolphins, where they're struggling to score touchdowns. So I could he beat the Commanders? Sure. Could he beat the Patriots at the end of the year? Yeah. But I don't think we're gonna see like great games from Zach the rest of the way. So yeah, I'll be shocked if they can get something for him in a trade. Someone said to me today, you always get a day 3 pick for a first rounder. But I don't know, man. I think there's a lot of evidence that he's not a quality NFL. He's definitely not an NFL starter. And there's questions about him as a backup. I know right now it feels like, oh, he's great, but like you got to remember what you were thinking the last few times he played. Chargers game, Bills game, Raiders throwing the interception, that kind of thing. So But yeah, I mean, I guess if he plays pretty well down the stretch, it helps his trade value for sure.
Yeah, I would think they could maybe get a seventh, sixth at best. Fifth is probably pushing it. Fifth
Yeah.
would really be if he balled out here the last 4 weeks. But yeah, like you said, he's got to string it together again. Let's see it in Miami. Let's see him go down to South Beach and have another great performance. It's not going to get any better than this. This is the cream of the crop performance for Zach Wilson. And it's a cream of the crop performance for a defense that called themselves, the 85 Bears before the season. They played like they made CJ Stroud look nothing like the rookie of the year that he was on track to win. And now with the injury, who knows? Hopefully he's okay. But man, what'd you see from the defense today, Cos?
Yeah, they played great. I mean, I think we do have to acknowledge Nico Collins going out of the game early, right? So they were without Tank Dell, they were without Dalton Schultz. I was talking to a few of the Texans writers before the game, and they were like, they weren't sure who he was going to throw to because Nico was still available then, but they were like Dell and Schultz are two of his favorite targets, and he was without them, and then Nico goes down, so that helped. But they were great in coverage. I mean, there was no open receivers, and then I thought that they pressured him. I thought the third down blitzing early on kind of rattled him. He just looked rattled. That one throw where he threw behind him was like a guy who didn't know what was coming basically. So yeah, they played great. I mean, they did a great job. And again, now they get another shot at Miami, which let's see what they can do against Miami next week.
A Will McDonald sighting. How about that?
Yeah,
Finally got a sack
exactly.
from him. That was we were waiting a while for that one.
He had a
Uh,
half a sack earlier in the year, Jake. That was his first full sack, but did have a half sack earlier.
well, half sacks to me. Give me a full sack. That's what really counts, especially when you're that high of a draft pick.
He plays 12 snaps a game. It's hard. I mean, you can't be critical of him not getting sacks. He barely plays.
Well, I'm glad he finally got one on the board. And yeah, we'll see what they do against Miami. The division is very interesting because Buffalo shocked the Chiefs thanks to Kadarius Toney doing Kadarius Toney things. So that division is interesting. If the Jets somehow win next week, Dolphins lose to the Titans, who knows what could happen in the division, but the Jets are still pretty much out of it.
It's over, Jake.
We're
You're taking a
checking
lot of
the
leaps. You're taking a lot of leaps. It's over. I mean, I think what you want now is you want to see what you got for next year.
Mhm.
And I thought today watching Brees and Garrett, it's like, oh yeah, like that's what it looks like when these two guys have a quarterback who's feeling it, who's slinging it to them. Is like, okay, they can take over a game and look pretty freaking good. So I think you had to appreciate that, and obviously what the defense did. If they can, bring back most of this defense next year and have Aaron back playing quarterback, you got to feel you feel a little bit better. I've seen something lately about like, oh, even with Aaron back, this team isn't that good. Next year, like no, they were going to be pretty good this year. They have holes, like they got to fix some things. They need a number 2 receiver. They need some help on the offensive line, but they would have been pretty good this year with Aaron, and they'll be good next year with Aaron.
Yeah, and the Sauce DJ Reed combo continues to look like
Great.
arguably the best duo in
Yeah,
the NFL. They were
they
absolutely
were great.
and
And throw Michael Carter in there too, Jake.
yeah, well,
He's doing a great job as a slot corner. Really, there's not. It's hard to find a weakness on the defense.
and listen, obviously they got lucky, like you said. Their 3 top targets were out today, but at this
Yeah.
point of the year, everyone's out. Like it feels like every week each team
Well,
is dealing with
and I feel like
me.
the Jets haven't had that much this year. Remember last year they got all those backup quarterbacks,
Yep.
right? And that helped. I feel like they haven't had a lot of luck this year in terms of facing teams when they're hurting or just catching them at a bad time. So they're kind of due for one of those. And no one feels bad for the Jets when they have their 6th or 8th guard playing the game. So you're not gonna take it back, but it should be just acknowledged that Stroud thinks part of why he looked so bad was not having his top 3 targets out there.
And we got to acknowledge that the Jets offensive line, whoever's out there is playing decent, right? Like we don't even know each week.
I mean,
They're not great for the run, but
Zach was under a lot of pressure. It sort of made Zach did even more impressive. Like he did a good job of evading the rush. I think he was sacked 4 times, maybe something like that. So yeah, so let's not go nuts. And the running game was non-existent again. So I think they piled up some running yards in the second half, but they didn't have a lot early. So yeah, this line playing. They had Max Mitchell playing, and Jacob Han. Do you have a Jacob Hansen jersey, Jake?
I know
Right.
the musical group Hanson, but no Jacob
Yeah,
Hanson.
yeah. Jake Hansen. So yeah, this is the ninth straight week they've had a different offensive line, which is pretty incredible.
Well, they're the walking wounded right now as they go to Miami next week, next Sunday, 1 o'clock game. Because how about the crowd today? Pretty sparse, right? Did they say the actual number? It was
They
like
never say the
50,000.
actual number. They never say the actual number, Jake.
What would be your guess be?
Oh my God, I'm bad at that, but I gotta say it was. I don't remember it ever being emptier than that for a regular season game. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, so I'll say like as empty.
And it
But
was pouring, right? Just down.
yeah, well, you know what? It actually is pouring now more. It did downpour at times, but it wasn't quite what they were saying. Like the wind never really was that big of a deal. And it was actually nice, Jake, before the game. Like if you were tailgating, it was like 60 degrees. The rain was really light before the game, on and off, and then it really started pouring. I mean, that's a fake number. That's tickets sold, Andrew. That's not attendance. They never tell you the actual attendance. They tell you tickets.
72,956.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's tickets
that's
sold. That's
yep.
tickets sold. They never tell you the actual number of people. Only like that's like a guarded secret, the actual number. So yeah, it's
I'll say it's
uh
probably 40, 45, maybe.
probably something like that. I mean, there was entire sections that were empty. So it looked like a preseason crowd basically.
They should have made it like just let everyone from up top go down low and just filled up the whole 100, maybe fill the
I don't
200.
know
They
if
never
people
do
would
that.
feel. I don't know if people would appreciate that are paying
That's true.
$30,000 for PSLs to be
Yeah,
upstairs.
that's fair.
Oh
That's
yeah,
accurate.
just let them down.
I saw lower level was going for like $9 before the game. It was
Yeah,
more expensive for my Raising Cane's meal when I was with the Heisman Trophy candidates, the winners, on Friday at Raising Cane's Times Square. They were serving people Friday morning doing a little promotion thing, and yeah, that was $15 for Raising Cane. So you could have sat in it, and they got their money's worth. They got their $9 worth. You always leave that stadium never getting your money's worth. Well, shout out to the fans that showed up because you're clinically insane, but you got a victory. And the Jets seem to play up to the competition. Cause 4 of their 5 wins here are against teams in the playoff race. Now, the Broncos, I know at the time were not, but the Broncos very much
yeah.
are looking
I
like a
mean,
playoff team.
everybody's in the playoff race, Joe. Who's been eliminated? The Patriots have been eliminated, and the Cardinals have been eliminated. Like,
Listen, they beat the Bills, who look like they'll make it. They beat the Eagles, who are making it.
yeah,
They beat the Texans, who we'll see if Stroud's hurt. They probably won't. And they beat the
yeah.
Broncos, who look like they make it. So not too shabby. I don't know what it is about playing up to good teams, playing down to bad teams. I don't know if that's a real thing or not, but they did today.
No, I don't think it's. I mean, I think the Jets are mediocre team with a really good defense. So I think that's what that's what happens. I don't think they're playing up to competition. I think the defense does play up to like some of these quarterbacks. Like I do think they get excited about stopping these great quarterbacks, but they got to stop Tua now.
What are you watching for the rest of the year now? Like, because I think it's important that they keep winning games for these young guys, learning the winning feeling. You saw how much happier they
Yeah,
were, and Brees and Garrett after the game saying, "No, you're the best guy. No, you're the best player on the team." And like, there hasn't been that feeling since the Giants game, which also didn't even feel like a win on October 29th. So,
yeah, it's
what are
really
you
the
what are
first
you
one since
watching
New
for here?
Year's. Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. I think the pressure is relieved a little bit now this week. The pressure was obviously building and building and building, and last week was a tough one. Um, so I do think, like I said, I don't think like momentum necessarily carries over year to year. I think that's kind of false, but I do think they can just sort of figure some things out offensively. If they can continue to just look like a functional offense the rest of the year, that's a win, and I think that's what they have to do here.
What's going to be annoying is that if they beat, say they lose to the Dolphins, which we expect, and then win the last 3, you're the whole off season, we're going to be thinking, man, what if they just won that Raider game? What if they
What?
just
Say
won
that
that
again, Jake.
Falcon
You're
game?
having them losing the Dolphins and then winning 3. Is that what it was?
Say they do. I mean, it's command.
What
They're
would
going to be
their what would
favored
their
against the
what
Commanders
would
and
their record be
Patriots, but
then?
it'd be 8-9, which I believe is what Cause
Did
predicted.
somebody predict
Did you
that?
put any money on that? Are you allowed to put money on? Are you
No.
allowed to bet? You're not allowed. Okay, I didn't know if there's like in your
That's not
contract if you have
ethical.
to sign something.
Yeah, I don't
Uh,
sign. I don't have a contract, but that would be unethical to bet on the Jets.
all right. Well,
So yeah,
the
but
prediction
no,
could come true. I mean, the Browns look great. I mean, Joe Flacco.
yeah,
I can't say that today because Zach played great, but man, if they picked up Joe Flacco, maybe they'd have a few more wins right now.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, I know. Flacco is the guy. I always liked Flacco. He was.
Did you actually? I didn't know you were a Flacco
I
guy.
always liked Flacco. I
Really?
thought it was a mistake when they didn't bring him back in 2021. Remember, he was here for 2020. Then they didn't bring him back, and they had Mike White as a backup. Then they traded for him at the deadline. I always thought they should have brought Flacco back that year. I always liked Flacco as a backup. I thought he was a good backup.
Yeah, and the Browns keep finding ways to win with Joe Flacco, and they announced today he'll be the starter the rest of the way.
Oh
So
yeah, good for
yeah,
him. He's
yeah,
a really good dude too. He's a good guy in locker room, popular guy.
it'll
I've heard from a lot of Jets players recently that are happy. Was happy that Brown signed him and are rooting for him.
bring him to backup Aaron next year. Aaron Rodgers and Joe Flacco. Imagine the year 2024 as the Jets quarterbacks. Like, could you ever thought you would have seen the day that
Yeah.
that would happen?
I don't think that's going to happen, Jake.
Yeah, I think the Jets are aiming a little bit higher than maybe one of these Heisman finalists the Jets draft in the second round, or actually no, they're trading their second round pick.
It's
Uh,
secondary is gone. Yeah. No, I think you're going to see a veteran backup. I just don't think it'll be Joe Flacco. And I think if they draft a quarterback, it'll be day 3 next year. I think if you're starting to dream about first round quarterbacks, look at 2025. I think that's when the first round quarterback thing will become our big reality.
and Jets fans, you've heard Cos. They're going to veteran and draft someone. As much as this was great to see from Zach, he's not coming back. So the truthers are out in full force on Twitter right now. Jets Twitter, everyone's got the Zach memes, and Mekhi Becton has the picture since Monday. Stunned on these hoes. He put the picture of Zach on the wall, that popular meme. But as good as this was, and hopefully he plays great the rest of the way, I don't want him back. I'm rooting for his success, but not with the Jets. Like, still send him packing. Win some games, but send him packing. Well, the Jets win a game. What were we going to say to that?
I
You
just
still,
like
I think in the back of your mind, you're like, they might bring him back.
no, I'm not, Jay. I just can't believe anyone would like the whole freaking criticism has been they screwed up by bringing him as the backup. Like, are those people now shifting to like maybe he'll be back next
But
year?
he plays it's like the Chiefs game and this game. He plays that game. You're like, wait, maybe
Oh.
we shouldn't give up on him.
Yeah, but
It's
what
been
about all the
3 years.
other games where you
I
guys are like,
agree.
oh, he's terrible. How did they bring him back? They should have gotten Joshua Dobbs. They should have gotten this guy and that guy, and anyone would be better than Zach Wilson. Now, are we really talking about whether he'll be back in 2024?
My guy Josh
Really?
Dobbs getting benched for Nick Mullins today.
Josh Dobbs, how's that looking?
He's come back down to earth.
Josh Dobbs
Joe
looking?
Flacco though still looks good. I think the majority are rooting for him, but understand that he's gone. But I
That's
do
fine.
think
I
there
understand
is
rooting for
still
him.
a minority Jets fans who are like, I want to see him do well, and then bring him back to be a backup. But I think most of us have, given up. But
Yeah.
mentally the guy's just taxed, and it's good to see him. He says the effort. We don't know if we see it on the field, but he looked like it. Like he was slinging it. There was that
He
one
didn't say that. Other people.
couple
He said
throws.
he was just a normal. He said it was the same as always.
Well, a couple of his teammates said that this week he felt like he had that mindset, but a couple of those throws were effort throws.
But a lot of teammates also said it's the same Zach they've ever seen. Like I just want to
Yeah,
emphasize that. Feels like people want to make that effort thing happen. There was a lot of teammates who were like, "No, it was the same Zach as always. Like it's just that we just executed." So
a couple of risky throws to Rucker and to Conklin that I love that worked. That usual Zach, those are getting picked off, but he
and
found them.
sometimes they will be, Jake. Like that's the
Yeah,
thing is like those throws are like 50-50 balls, they call them, because there's danger. There's 50% danger. So, he said like I think I said it the other day, we were talking about him as a wild stallion, right? Like when you play like that, sometimes you're gonna throw 4 interceptions. And then there's gonna be days where it works, So that's the risk. Next week, if he plays like that against the Dolphins, he could throw 4 interceptions. Like that's what you have to accept is the risk if you're gonna play like that. The alternative is checking down all the time, like Tim Boyle.
yeah. I've seen enough
in some games this year.
I've seen enough checkdowns for a lifetime. So I'd rather him throw the pick to this point. You're 5-8, just take the risk. and see what he's got. Well, we'll see what happens next week. We'll preview that game on Thursday. Happy Hanukkah, everyone. It's a Hanukkah miracle. The Jets win for the first time since before Halloween. And we will preview that Thursday, and we'll close this episode of Gangs All here next. All righty. Positive Jets talk. It's been so long, I forgot what it feels like. As that says goodnight to episode 170 of Gangs All Here, a Jets podcast from the New York Post. Thanks to Andrew Hartz and the Inter Mason Verdicchio for helping me produce the show. Watch us now on that New York Post Sports YouTube page. Give us a thumbs up. Comment below. How are you feeling right now about the Jets? And what do you think about Zach? Are you in that minority that think the Jets should bring him back? I think we've seen enough in the 3 years. Time's up, but good for the kid. You know, letting it rip, slinging it down the field, making some remarkable throws today. Let's see him do it again. You know, last time we said this about him, he wasn't very good after that. So let's see him string a couple of good games together, close this season strong, and close this with a positive feeling. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, wherever you get podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating, write a nice review. Happy Hanukkah to all our Jewish listeners, all those who celebrate the Hanukkah miracle. Continues on the 4th day of Hanukkah. The Jets gave to us a happy victory. For Brian Costello, I'm Jake Brown. We will preview the Dolphins game on Thursday's episode of the program. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Happy Hanukkah. And JTS, Jets, Jets, Jets.